Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back for a new science video this Wednesday. I do want to do something different this week. I know we've been doing our instructional videos on Wednesday and our fun Fridays with our experiments and our hands-on activities, but this week I wanted to do something a little bit different and have Wednesday and Friday be both of our fun experiment days. So today on Wednesday's video, we are going to do 3 different experiments that you can do at home if you have cornstarch. Okay, so boys and girls, if you want to ask your mom and dad to look in the kitchen, they may already have some cornstarch, but all 3 of our recipes today are going to involve cornstarch. So if you have this and the other ingredients, then you will be able to do these experiments at home with Miss Owen. So the first one we're going to do today is called soap putty. And all you need is 2 ingredients. You need dish soap, like what you wash your dishes with, not things that you put in your dishwasher, but the actual soap. And then you also need cornstarch. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what those look like. So today I have my cornstarch. Mine looks like this. Sometimes it's in a yellow box and it's in this bag. So I'm just going to take it out of the bag so it'll be easier for me to work with. Oh, I gotta use my muscles. I might have to rip the box open to get it out. What? It doesn't want me to get it out. Oh well. Well, I have my cornstarch in my box, and then I have my dish soap, my Dawn dish soap. So these are the 2 things we're gonna need other than a bowl. And I just grabbed 2 Tupperware bowls because they're easy, and if they get messed up, then it won't be that big of a deal. And you also need some measuring cups or spoons that your parents will probably already have in their kitchen. So for this one, you need a tablespoon measuring cup. And so it's really, really tiny. And I'm going to grab mine really quick. So a tablespoon is one of the bigger ones. So my tablespoon looks like this. So you can scoop things into it. And if you look on most of them, if you look, you have to look really, really closely because it's tiny. It will say TBSP. Make sure it has the B in there. If it doesn't have the B for tablespoon, it's going to be too small. So to make our soap putty, boys and girls, all we need to do is get 1.5 of these of our soap and 2 tablespoons of our cornstarch. So I need 2 of the cornstarch. I always like to start with the dry ingredients. Whoop. So I'm going to get in my cornstarch. I'm going to get 2 scoops out. Kind of measure them off. Shake it off. We've got 1 and 2. And then remember, we're scientists, so we're going to be making a mess. So if you want to lay down a towel or ask your parents if you want to do this outside so that you don't make a mess in the house, make sure you ask them for some help when you're doing these experiments. So we have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and we need 1.5 tablespoons of our Dawn dish soap. So I'm going to squeeze it in there. We're going to need 1 full one. I'm going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Go all the way to the top. When I get to the top, I'm going to stop and pour it in. 1, and we got bubbles going on. 1.5. So we don't want to go all the way to the top. We want to fill it halfway. Shake all of it out. I have a little towel over here so that I can wipe off my table when I'm done. All right, and when you're finished, you're going to take your spoon and you're going to stir it together. And remember, we're scientists, so things may not always turn out the way that we want them to the first go around. So we have to kind of play with our ingredients, play with our materials, and see if we can get it the consistency that we want. So we're going to keep going, keep going. Now, if your soap putty is a little bit too dry, you might want to add a little bit of soap. And if it's way too gooey and getting stuck to your fingers, then you may want to add some more cornstarch. So mine looks a little bit dry to me. I might add a little bit more soap, not very much though. And stir it and mix it around. And remember, when you're doing science experiments, your hands are probably going to get messy, so that's okay. We can go inside and wash our hands when we're done. Okay, and you can feel it, you can push it, you can roll it around. So it's not quite like Play-Doh. Mine's a little bit hard to see because it's so bright out here, but it's a putty consistency. So you can play with it, you can squeeze it, and it's not super messy. So my hands aren't getting really messy. Mine's a little bit blue because my dish soap is blue, but if you want to put some food coloring in it, you can make it whatever color you want. So this is cool because it has its own consistency, kind of like a gooey cloud. So if you have cornstarch and dish soap at home, which most of you probably do, then you can make soap putty just like Miss Owen did today. So I'm going to squeeze my soap putty back into the bowl because we're going to keep moving and keep doing some more experiments today. All right, so I'm going to move my soap putty out of the way. The next one we're going to do is called Mundo, and Mundo is a little bit different, but it's kind of similar to soap putty. But our Mundo only has 2 ingredients too, other than our measuring cups and our spoons. And those 2 ingredients are cornstarch. Remember, we need this for all of our experiments. So we have cornstarch, and you need hair conditioner. So I grabbed this one just because we had it in our cabinet. So hair conditioner, not shampoo. It's got to be conditioner. So make sure you ask your parents. Don't just go into the shower and grab all your stuff and use up all your conditioner because your parents might be mad. So make sure you ask permission. So what we're going to do for our Mundo, I have another bowl, a new bowl, so that it's easy to clean out. And this time we're going to use a different measuring equipment today. We're going to use a cup. So before we used our little baby tablespoon, that one's so tiny, we're going to use a cup. So don't just grab a cup out of your kitchen cabinet. You have to have a measuring cup. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's a little bit bigger. So we have a half cup, and they look like this. So I have a half cup, and if you look at the top, it will say half cup. And then you'll also have a bigger one, that is your cup. Okay, and it'll say at the top, 1 cup. So make sure you're grabbing the right one when you're doing these experiments. So for our Mundo, what it wants us to do is take 1 cup of cornstarch. So before, I could just dip my little tablespoon in my box, but this time I'm probably going to have to pour it into the cup because it's so big. So we need 1 cup of cornstarch. So I'm going to hold it over my bowl and be careful because this is kind of like flour, so it might fly everywhere and you don't want to inhale it. That wouldn't be the best. So we're going to push it in, shake it a little bit so we can get all the way to the top. Ooh, I'm making a mess everywhere. That's okay. All right, so we have 1 cup of cornstarch. I'm going to pour it in my bowl. Shake it. And we need half of a cup, the smaller one, half a cup of hair conditioner. So I'm going to hold my hair conditioner over. And we're just going to squeeze it in. So I'm going to squeeze my hair conditioner. Remember, this is going to take a lot of hair conditioner, so make sure you ask your parents so it doesn't waste it. Make sure you have spare at home that your parents are okay with you using for your experiments. You're going to shake it, make sure it's even and all the way to the top. Okay, and it smells very good too. So we have our hair conditioner. I'm going to dump that in with my cornstarch so we can make our Mundo. I'm going to use my spoon from before. Hopefully it's okay that I'm mixing my 2 things. Get all of it out because I want to use as much as the recipe calls for. And I think white Mundo would be a little bit boring, so I'm going to take my food coloring that I already have, and I'm going to make, let's do red. Maybe we can do some red. So I have all different color food colorings. I'm going to do a couple drops in there. And be careful because if you touch this food coloring, it will stain your clothes. So Miss Owen's got on a t-shirt and some pants that it's okay if they get dirty because I'm doing science experiments. But make sure you don't have on really nice clothes because we don't want them to get messed up. So I'm going to stir it all around. Stir, stir, stir. Mix it up so we can make our Mundo. And this consistency is going to be a little bit different than our putty. This one's going to be a little bit lighter. because it's got more of the cornstarch, and our conditioner is really soft and fluffy, because remember, hair conditioner makes your hair soft. So this Mundo is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit softer, a little bit fluffier. It'll be easier to manipulate. And just like we did with our soap putty, remember, sometimes recipes aren't 100% right, and we have to play with them a little bit. So remember, if it's too dry, we want to add something that's more of a liquid. Remember, we reviewed our solids, liquids, and gases. So you might want to grab some more liquid. In this case, it would be your hair conditioner if it's too dry. And if it's too wet and it's too gooey, then you might want to add some more cornstarch. So my food coloring kind of turned it pink. It's not even really red, but you can add more if you want to. And it looks like might be getting a little bit more. I'm sorry it's so hard for you guys to see. It's so bright outside. I like to do my videos outside because it's just such a pretty day. The weather's nice. We're getting out doing fun stuff. And if Miss Owen makes a mess, it won't be all over my house. Okay, so we're going to keep stirring and keep going. I think mine might be a little bit too gooey. So I might add a little bit more cornstarch. Keep calling it car. Let's add some more cornstarch because it's kind of supposed to be almost like a cloud that you can play with. So it won't be the same consistency as our putty, but it will still be fun to play with. That looks better. It's getting fluffier like a cloud. Remember, we're talking about Mundo. Do you remember when we talked about our day and night video, where we talked about how it looks like the moon is chasing you or the sun is chasing you, but is it actually moving in outer space? No, planet Earth is the one orbiting the sun. Okay. And it almost kind of looks like strawberry ice cream, some powdery ice cream. All right, so when you're finished, you can play with it. You can pick it up and roll it into a ball. And that is your Mundo. It's kind of like Play-Doh, but it's a little bit fluffier. It's a little bit softer. It's not as hard to play with. And you can make as much as you want. And that is your Mundo. So if you have cornstarch and hair conditioner, you can make some Mundo, and it'll look like that. All right. Miss Owen's hands are getting so messy. I'm going to dry them off. And that's okay because my workspace I can clean off and fix later. Okay, and the last one's going to be a little bit trickier to make, but that is because it is one of the coolest science experiments you can do, and it is called Oobleck. And if you have ever read the book by Dr. Seuss called Bartholomew and Oobleck, you can look it up on YouTube for the read aloud. You can go to maybe Kindle would have them. If you have the physical book, you can read it at home, but it is called Bartholomew and Oobleck, and it's a story that Dr. Seuss wrote about this material that falls from the sky. It's green oobleck, and it just wreaks havoc. It causes so much trouble in the town that they live in. And what's really, really cool about oobleck is that it is a non-Newtonian fluid. So it looks like a liquid, like something you would pour and take the shape of a container. It looks like a liquid when you pour it, but it actually acts like a solid when a force is acted upon it. So remember we talked about force, push and pull, motion before we left for spring break. That is what this is called, and Dr. Seuss wrote a book where it's actually named after that. And a lot of people will make big quantities. They will make a lot of oobleck. If you make a lot of it, you could actually walk on it. I don't have enough material to make that much oobleck, but I'll show you what to do, and it might be a little bit hard to work with. But that's why we are scientists. We are going to experiment with what we have. So I'm going to clean up my workspace just a little bit because this one has a little bit more materials and a few more ingredients that we're going to have to work with. So I'm going to set those down for now. Wipe off my table just a little bit. I got cornstarch everywhere. Okay. So our oobleck is a little bit different. You might need a bigger bowl because we're using more ingredients for this one. So our oobleck, we need a big bowl. So I have my big bowl right here, and I use glass, so hopefully it will be a little bit easier for us to use. You're going to need water, cornstarch, food coloring, and your bowl and a big spoon to mix with. So remember, anytime we're doing these experiments, you can pause this video to go grab your materials. But for this one, remember, we're going to use cornstarch for all of these experiments. So you should have your cornstarch, your food coloring. I picked green because, oh, it fell. I picked green because it is the one that they talk about in Dr. Seuss. And we also need water, which we already have. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start with our water, and it asks for 1 cup of water. So remember, our cup is our bigger measuring cup. It looks like this, 1 cup. So we need 1 cup of water, and hopefully I have enough. We're going to pour our water into our measuring cup. 1 cup of water all the way to the top, and stop. So we're going to pour our water into our bowl. Okay. Next, we are going to add our cornstarch, and it wants us to have 1.5 to 2 cups of cornstarch. So I'm going to take that. I might just take my cup again because it's clean. I just poured water in it, so it's not as messy as our hair conditioner one. So I think I'm just going to use that. So we need 1 full one. So be careful. Remember, this stuff flies everywhere and makes a mess. So dump it out of your box. And remember, if you do all 3 of these, it's probably going to take a whole box of cornstarch. So just keep that in mind. So we have 1. And then we need half of 1. So don't fill it all the way. Just fill it up. Remember, half is when you cut it into 2 equal parts. So you can eyeball it or ask for your parents to help you figure out how much 1.5 is. So we've used our cornstarch and our water. So right now, we have our water and our cornstarch. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start mixing it a little bit. And it's going to get kind of hard to mix because, like I said, it's a really, really interesting object. It's not a solid. It's not a liquid. It is called non-Newtonian. And people are really, really intrigued by this. So we're going to stir it a little bit. And I'm going to make green. So I'm going to open my green food coloring. Don't forget this stains, so be very careful. I'm going to mix it in. Making our oobleck. Okay, and mine looks a little bit goopy right now. Remember, it acts like a liquid when you pour it. I'm going to put a little bit more cornstarch. I might have to use the rest of my cornstarch. And hope that this works. You can kind of already see, look how the cornstarch kind of just moves around. It goes with it. It's almost like a little boat. I know it's hard to see. Sorry about that. We're going to mix it in with the cornstarch. See how it's kind of a blob? There's blobs in here, but then it also is gooey. Remember, we keep mixing it. And remember, Miss Owen has never made oobleck before, so I hope that this turns out okay. But remember, as scientists, we go through our scientific method, we make a hypothesis, and it's okay if we get it wrong. Remember, hypothesis is just an educated guess. We're guessing what might happen to something. So look, we've got a liquid. If I pour it, it's moving around. So let me see what happens. And if my hands get super messy, then that's going to be crazy. I have to go in and wash my hands. Let's set this here for now and see what happens if I put my finger in it. Okay, so look, it's got, this is a really messy one. So if you hold it, you can kind of squeeze it in your hands. This one is gooey. I might need a little bit more cornstarch, but I'm out. So I would say if you have some cornstarch, make sure you use that. So it's really goopy. And it's like a solid, but your fingers are going to be really, really messy when you make this oobleck. I think that I put a little bit too much water in mine. But when you can squeeze it, once it dries a little bit, or if you have a little bit more cornstarch, it won't look just like this. It'll be a little bit different. You can just kind of play with it a little bit. You might want to be outside. You don't want to pour this on your carpet because it would get all over your house. But it has a really, really weird consistency. It's not really a solid. It's not really a liquid. Mine's a little bit more like a liquid. But if you put more cornstarch in it, I bet you that it will be even different. So I've got all this goo. This might be something you could use for Halloween. Ugh. All right, boys and girls, so my oobleck, my science experiment didn't work out very well, but maybe if you add a little bit more cornstarch than I did, if I had some more, I would add it, but I'm all out. So if you have some extra cornstarch, I would do a little bit more. That way it's not as gooey as mine is, and that way you can play with it a little bit more. But I would recommend doing these outside or in your kitchen. Make sure you lay down a towel or something like that, and make sure your parents are doing it with you so you don't make a big mess. If you do any of these experiments, please show us on the White Station Facebook page and make sure that we see it so that we know you're doing these fun virtual experiences at home. If you want to watch another kind of video, I'm sure YouTube has a ton of tutorials for you to do. You could even check our Generation Genius science program, and I'm going to keep playing with this oobleck, and hopefully it will keep getting a little bit thicker so I can play with it a little bit more. But I will see you on Friday for our next video where we're actually going to make a volcano and something called rainbow milk. So if you have those things, you should have all that stuff at home. Come back, see me on Friday, and have fun with your 3 experiments that involve cornstarch. Bye, boys and girls.